Hi, this is Michael Bean, acting teacher, and this is your free lesson from myfreeactingclass.com for today, Wednesday, May 26th. Today is the lesson where we cover skills, and today I want to talk about being an artist, and I want to talk a little bit about why that has been useful for me as an identity and some of the things that have helped me get there. And then I want to ask those of you who are here today a question about your own artistic selves so that we can follow what you are longing for as artists. And so the word artist obviously means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. What I can tell you completely definitively is where it is useful for me and what it means to me. So for me, adjusting my identity so I actually thought of myself as an artist helped a whole lot of the exploration I was doing make sense. Before deciding, oh yes, like I'm allowed to claim this title of artist, I truly was spending most of my life doing creative things. I still did not think of myself as an artist. I had done professional improv at that point. I'd done professional film and TV. I was even teaching. It was like, oh, I'm not an artist. An artist is one of like those mystical, like poetic people, like that are artists. I had this idea of being an artist that excluded me. And one of the things that really helped me approach it from a way that I found useful is to just remember that artist is this label for somebody who is a searcher. That an artist is somebody who steps outside of this norm of doing the spreadsheet, and this all makes sense, and is just following the thing that calls to them. And so that's where the label artist is useful for me. Right? So, and to say it sort of more prosaically and less poetically, if you're at a dinner party, which hopefully someday will happen again, but let's say that you're on a Zoom dinner party at the moment, and somebody says, what do you do? That sort of terrible normie question that happens in so many social settings, and you say, I'm an artist, then people are like, oh, you're one of those. Right, one of those people. And of course it still means different things to different people, but it is a category, a useful social category for somebody who is pursuing art of some kind. And yeah, some people you say that to are going to be like, oh, do you paint? And you'll have to be like, do you think that, and you might have to turn it around on them as a question and say, oh, is that what artist means to you? Is this just people who paint? So that you don't get put on the spot and start to feel like, I'm not a real artist because I don't paint, or whatever it is that somebody's idea of it is. So I want to share a quote with you. I spent a good chunk of the morning reviewing my journals a number of years ago. And actually what really helped me shift my own identity as an artist was engaging with a book called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I've talked about this before, so I won't go into too much detail about the book here, but I'll just show it to you. The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron. You can get this from any library. Probably your library would let you download it as an ebook, 10 minutes after you finish this lesson if you wanted to. There's a lot of good access to ebooks through public libraries, he says, where I've been getting a lot of my books. So it doesn't have to cost you money, and certainly most secondhand bookstores will have one or more copies. I've been in the habit for years of picking up extra copies every time I'm in a secondhand bookstore so I can give them away to people. So this is the author's name, Julia Cameron. She was, you can see, Spiritual Path to Higher Creativity, 1992 self-help book by American author Julia Cameron. The book was written to help people with artistic creative recovery, which teaches techniques and exercises to assist people in gaining self-confidence and harnessing their creative skills and talents. And I found this book extremely useful. She connects creativity to this essential quality that all of us have, and the practices in there. One of them is, and maybe the central practice in her book, is something she calls morning pages, which you just wake up and you write 3 pages before you do anything else. Even if it means that you have to go to bed a little earlier or wake up a little earlier, but like before you take in anybody else's ideas, before you look at media of any kind, before you read anything, you write just from that place of like having just slept and refreshed your brain. It's like, here's what I'm thinking and feeling. And for me, it always takes about halfway through. So the intention of 3 pages is truly to write for half an hour. So if you write, like I write a very, very small printing, which you'll see in a moment. And so I have figured out, okay, with this journal, here's what about half an hour looks like. But the idea is to like block out that half hour to be like, this is me listening to myself. And for me, like I said, that my identity as an artist is connected to like, I'm a searcher, I'm a learner. This is me putting my focus on art, even when it doesn't logically make sense. It's like, here's me following what calls to me. What other word do we have for that besides artist? Except maybe the things that fall under that subcategory. Poet, painter, actor. Artist is the top level for that. At least to the best of my knowledge in my language, that's the one that makes sense to me. And so not only have I been doing this practice since 2015, right? So that wasn't that long ago. That means that I was in my mid 30s before I was like, oh wait, like I could actually call myself an artist. Like I think I've been working exclusively in the creative field for 10 years at that point. So if you make that shift to start thinking of yourself as an artist before that, you'll be a full decade or more, 2 decades ahead of me. Anthony, if you do this now, you'll be 2 full decades before I shifted my identity to thinking of myself as an artist. And truly, it's useful. It helps people locate you. It helps you locate yourself. And it helps you put yourself in a community with many, many thousands of people who have been doing this work of following what really calls to them over the last several thousand years. Right? So in the moments where you're like, I'm alone and dumb for doing this thing that is not practical, right? Like I put in time every day and it doesn't result in an immediate paycheck. What am I even doing? It's like, all right, I'm an artist, and we've got a lot of a backup for those. So in addition to writing my morning pages, I go back and I review my morning pages from last year. And so this morning I was catching up and doing several months of like going through with a highlighter, and highlighting the bits that stand out to me, and because I want to carry them forward into the next thing and the next thing. And one of the quotes here that I wanted to share with you, that is from the poet Rainier Marie Rilke. This guy right here, Rainier Marie Rilke, Bohemian Austrian poet and novelist. He wrote a book called Letters to a Young Poet. He's widely quoted. And here's the quote right here. It looks inverted on my screen, so maybe I'll just read it to you. It is, to be an artist means not to calculate and count, to grow and ripen like a tree does, not hurry the flow of its sap, and stands at ease in the spring gales without fearing that no summer may follow. It will come. And isn't this the thing that artists need, and particularly film and TV actors who are doing this fantastic irrational thing of like, I'm going to invest all of this time every day because this is the thing that calls to me, and I have to make peace with this tension between I am interacting with the system that is very commodity driven, that is very much like, do we like your face today? And maybe we won't like it tomorrow. And inside of that, I want to be a whole person. I want to show up and follow the thing that calls to me personally. So I'll read the quote to you again. To be an artist means not to calculate and count, to grow and ripen like a tree does, not hurry the flow of its sap, and stands at ease in the spring gales without fearing that no summer may follow. It will come. That's Rainier Marie Rilke. So perhaps not what you're expecting for a Wednesday of skills lesson, but I think that it's really important to balance out the headshots and the presentation and the, here's the way that this art that we're doing is normally presented to the world. I think that it is important to balance that out with, and it's important that you be a whole person inside of that, and that you find a way to listen to, here's who I am, and here's what lights me up. Right? Here's what really brings me alive, and I'm going to find a way to communicate that. Right? So a lot of the technical skills that we're talking about, which is, there's this technical skill of how do I make it present clearly, and then there's the technical skill of how do I take text and bring myself to it and find ease with it. And I've been talking a lot about that in some of the recent lessons. And then there's a deeper piece of like, and then I need to listen to myself. I need to make sure that I am showing up with it. And that's present for me as an artist right now, because I realized just on Monday, I had a conversation with one of my teachers and realized that I've been after a specific type of characters. I've been working on a specific type of characters, and accidentally slipped into thinking that to be that kind of character, I had to not include all of myself. Whereas humans are fantastically rich and interesting and complicated. Right. So for the concrete example, I've been working on characters that are powerful. I got some advice from several acting teachers. Well, you're like an older white bald guy. Like, what are the kind of roles that are out there for you? It's going to be, like jerks, and people who are like military commanders and like CEOs and lawyers, and so okay, maybe that's true. Like I want to be able to embody those characters. I want to add that to my repertoire, and so I've been working on those characters for several years, because as you can see, that's power over, dominance, aggression. It's a little different from my normal social persona. Like that's not how I roll in the world. But in even the activist in me, that's like, actually, we could use a lot less male-bodied persons out there in the world doing dominance, power over aggression. Even the activist part of me is like, yeah, one of the best ways to do that is for people like me to take on those roles and deconstruct them on purpose, and like be able to talk clearly about them afterwards. So the tension there. And I realized just on Monday that in taking that on, I still have been doing this thing that I talked to you about a couple of weeks ago. It's like, that's the result I want. Boom, I'm going to put the result on. Instead of how do I adjust the world to get to that result? How do I still include all of myself? How could I still use my imagination to go, okay, what would the world have to be, for even Michael Bean, to come across as dominant, aggressive, power over? Like, how can I really find myself, and find my authenticity inside of that? And authenticity is this word that gets bandied about so much that it's pretty much dead. Like as soon as you can call breakfast cereal authentic, like come on, like the word is kind of dead. It doesn't mean it's not useful. It just means that it's a little played out. And so when I talk about that as an artist, I'm really talking about wholeness. What are the parts of you that need to be attended to and that need to be included? Because it is so important to bring that into the conversation and not just, where am I going to get the most work? Like how do I pitch myself, in a way that is going to be the most strategic? And I'm not saying those conversations are not valuable. I'm just saying that I don't know, even if you look at it as a company, you're like, okay, I'm the company, I'm the CEO, I'm all the departments. Marketing doesn't take 90%. It's not a 90% of the thing department. There's got to be a thing first. They're like, you got to have the widgets or the creative output or something. Marketing is like really important. What is it? I don't know. Somebody with a more business background, tell me, 10%, 20%? It's not typically a 90% unless you're an ad agency. But even then, we would say that, like, are they marketing themselves as an agency, or are they mostly like making the ads? And then like that really important 20% is making sure that they're getting out and telling people about it. And that, I think, is one of the best ways that I know to insulate yourself against this kind of commodity-oriented thing that is film and TV. Where if you have an identity as an artist, then does it matter if they buy your face this year or not? Well, I mean, of course you're going to care, but I think you're less likely to connect that to your sense of identity, right? That can be like, okay, cool. I'm still focusing on attending to myself, on growing the my own capacity, on feeding myself as an artist. And then, yes, of course, I can talk about new representation or new headshots, or do what I need to do uh, to um, to interface that with the world. But the attention starts here. And so my question for you today, is if you just try on, even if it kind of like makes you a little squeamish, and you're like, artist, I don't know, no, and it gives you those feelings. Certainly it gave me those feelings for a long time. I was like very uncomfortable taking it on. Right, artist was this thing for other people. My question for you is, what are you longing for? What is it that what is it that you are longing for? And I think that attending to that longing is part of the thing that calls you towards being an artist. So, Candy, you're the only person who I can see who's got their video on. Do you want to tell me what it is that you're longing for?
Well, I think in regards to like being an artist and acting, like, so I want to have myself shine through with my work. So right now, it's funny. Probably one of the one time like I've sent in a self tape that I felt like that was a piece of me, maybe. And it was like my very first one, or well, no, not my first one. Actually, you had us do like a Hallmark thing first, but then when you had to start doing the like one line thing, I think it was, I found out I was adopted or something. But when I had sent that one in, I had like kind of been messing around and saying it a bunch of ways, but I had like one long recording going. But there was like a couple of them that I felt like I wasn't, I like, that was me. I don't know, like that kind of switch happened and I could feel it there. And I don't know, I really liked that and being able to show that. And I showed you, right? And then I showed it to a couple other people that I know, like my family and a friend of mine. And she's like, oh my gosh. But it was so short. So I was like, I want to be able to continue that, not just like have a moment within a scene, but like I'm another person, but it's still me.
Beautiful.
So,
Beautiful. So
yeah.
that thing that you're longing for is, I'm another person, but it's still me. Is to find yourself, in the work.
Yeah.
It's now I'm not a religious person, despite having grown up in partly, I think, in fact, because I grew up in like a very rigid religious household, but I definitely consider myself a spiritual person, and the way that I think about spirituality is as connection, right? So for me, the things that I'm called to, and particularly the things that I am connected to, uh, help me feel like, oh yes, I like, again, this is an identity that I'm allowed to claim. Like, okay, I feel connected to things that are bigger than myself. This means that I can consider myself a spiritual person. Nobody else gets to decide that for me. And for me, that uh, connection to um, knowing myself, and then putting that into story is definitely one of the things that calls me, deeper into acting as well. I think I've said in this lesson before that was my in for acting at the beginning. Was I was like, there's something about this that I really need, and I need to know myself more, and story is my access point for it. Now everybody else, while I put Candy on the spot, y'all have had some time to think. If you're feeling shy, you can just put it in the chat window, and I will read it. But I'm curious, what are you longing for? And while you're thinking about that, I will share what one of my students on Monday said. She said, "Booking! I'm longing for a booking." And of course the whole class laughs and everybody gets it. They're like, yeah, okay, right? Because she's been working really hard and auditioning and meeting with her agent and doing all the things. And it was fun to follow, to go, okay, well, like, what is that booking for you? Like, what is the piece of that that brings you alive? Is it the the vacation from your life of being on set? Is it the money that's the longing? Is it the validation? Is it, and sort of as we went through the things, she's like, it's the validation. It's the
I like that too.
it's the like, yes, you're on the right path. And of course, like, who doesn't want to be well paid for the thing that they're excited about? Like, of course you can, but follow the longing, and behind it was like, oh right, there's all of this energy out, and the longing is, if the longing is for validation, that's something that you can attend to, right? Can you make a booking happen for yourself? No, you can't. But you can follow the sense of the longing and go, okay, the longing is just somebody put me in your TV show. Okay, like, what is that? If I really imagine having that, what does it do for me? What does it tell my body about that longing? How can can I put words to it that make sense for my experience, so that I can attend to this, or so that I can keep filling the well? Because the risk is that otherwise, uh, I've seen actors get bitter, right? They're putting that attention, into the marketing, and then they're like, why isn't it working? I'm being strategic. Yeah. And yeah. And there are some actors who love the strategic, right? There's some actors, who, like, that's their jam. Their longing is like, yes, oh, like, I long for a million Twitter followers, or like whatever. I don't know, but I don't know that world. Like, that is not, where I approach the art from. And truly, I think that, um, that if, right, if that's a different set of acting lessons, right? That's a different set of podcasts. You basically, if that's your jam, well, then I'll ask my friend Wyo sort of who you should go follow, and you go, like, learn a whole bunch about marketing, you know, but that marketing piece is just the interface. Anybody? Dia, I know that you often are in a place where you can't turn on your video, but what are you longing for? Let's see, what have we got? I long for collaborating with other artists on set and on stage. Oh yeah, right. And so to follow the longing, is, it sounds like it's the doing something creative together. It's the community aspect of it. Is that right? Like, we're all in high school again as a team. Yes, right. Good. What a perfect way to investigate the longing, Dia. Is to um, is to follow, like, what felt good. You're like, oh, you're like, okay, I had this feeling at some point, you know, and it's not about returning to the past, but it's about, like, what can I learn from my own experience about what lights me up, about what makes me feel the most alive. And there's a whole bunch of different paths, at that. But I think that's a great thing to investigate, because if you were going to pull apart that collaborating or just attend to it a little bit, I wonder if you would find ways that you could meet that need that are not immediately dependent on somebody else. Just look for those little ways, to fill the well, whether it's collaborating with somebody here in class, or even finding something that somebody in your circle is already doing, and putting in that little thread of your own collaboration, right? Uh, if you don't have things that you feel called to initiate, you've got a lot to offer, creatively, and so to start putting that intention out there, and just sort of keeping your antenna going for, like, where are those little potentials for collaboration. Dia also put in the chat window that she would love to see one of my tapes. I actually, if we ever get a Tuesday where there are not enough self-tapes, I would be happy to share my own self-tapes, but not because I think they will blow you away, but so that I can show you my own same critical lens on my own work, right? The wonderful thing about recording yourself, is that as a film and TV actor, I don't think it is possible to be an artist, right, to be an actor and do both jobs at the same time. You have to be acting and looking at yourself, observing yourself. And so as a theater actor, for instance, there's a lot of trust. You basically have to put a lot of trust in other people to reflect back to you, because the sensation that's happening here isn't always congruent with the result that you get, if that makes sense. Right? Sometimes it's like, well, I feel terribly nervous, and everybody else is like, well, it looks amazing. But in film and TV, you can check that. You can find out for yourself. Right? You can do the work and be like, yeah, I feel amazing. Or like, oh God, I feel super nervous. And you can watch it back later and go, oh, the things that I was feeling definitely came across in the story, but not in the way that I thought they did. Right? It is not, people are not able to read my mind. Even I can't read my mind going back and looking at the tape. And so I'm like, well, what was that little look about? But I'm making a whole story about it. So I would be happy to show you those. Bruce put this, I long for learning and working with other actors. And then like Jenna Ortega, Michael B. Jordan, keep getting better and learning every day and following your passion, because money in school and stuff, but having fun is the most important thing in life, if that makes sense. Beautiful. The longing for learning, Bruce, is, man, my people, like, that puts you on my team. I really respect that, because again, that's something that you can keep feeding regardless of how the like marketing interface with the rest of the commodity driven world is going. That you could continue to follow what lights you up and what makes you feel alive. Okay. This is something that I love, and I really appreciate you coming and joining the conversation today, and for sharing some of your own vulnerable things that you are longing for. It's definitely a conversation I want to come back to another time. But right now we're at 4:30, and so I think we should probably wrap there. There we go. Of course, that's Anthony. All right, people. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope that something about today, it just gives you a little bit of movement, towards being able to think of yourself as an artist. Certainly, it's been really useful for me. I hope that you find usefulness in it as well. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.